Welcome back. Now, before the break, we were talking about new bikes from Intermot, and one of the most important ones was BMW's new S1000RR. Now, Matt, you've just been on holiday, haven't you?
It was not a holiday.
It was. So, come on, what type of launch? Was this road? Was it track? What were we looking at?
With it being a superbike, it was track-based, an entire day at the track. It was in Seville, or as the Spanish like to say, Sevilla. I know, I didn't know if I was in the right place, but Seville is Sevilla. First of all, we flew, it was 29 hours door to door. So I left my place here in South Africa, 3 flights, Zurich, down to Madrid, then to Sevilla, and it was 29 hours of traveling. That normally puts me in a bad mood, and before you say anything, I'm not always in a bad mood. But fortunately, we had an entire day at Monte Bianco track, White Mountain track or something in the south of Spain. It's used for testing. It's quite long, quite fiddly and crappy in places, but it has a massive straight. So ultimately, yeah, track test at a track that suited the bike.
It suited the bike. It's interesting you say that, but look, okay, let's just talk about the bike, because enough about where you were. Super bikes, and big engine, massive power. Surely this is more of the same.
Pretty much, yes. Mechanically, they've been working around the head of the engine. You've got a new air duct system that goes in there. You've got lighter valves, new camshaft, and importantly, there's also a new exhaust, which is a beautiful piece of kit. More of that later. So they've released, I think it's 146 kilowatts, but who cares about light bulb measurements? It's 199 horsepower now. It's only up about 4 or 5, I think, from the previous one. Torque hasn't been increased dramatically, but they say it's in a much wider spread. So it's outrageously apfast.
Now, look, obviously, this is the one bike in the superbike category where electronic rider aids were massively, in there. But before we get to that, let's look at the sort of analog side of it, the suspension and the chassis. Have they changed that much, or...?
Well, it's essentially a new frame, which they've made lighter. They've been concentrating on getting that right mix of rigidity in certain places and flexibility, which is supposed to help your handling, but not a massive amount done there. In terms of suspension, well, look, we were riding the versions of the bike that had all the extras thrown at them, so the model we had has got the dynamic, or the DDC, dynamic damping control. There's so many acronyms with BMW these days, difficult to keep track. And that's come straight off the HP4, so that's continually adjusting to the parameters set by the bike itself.
So it's an active suspension,
It's
basically.
an active suspension that's continually responding to what's happening to the bike, yeah, absolutely. When you ride the track, there are a couple of points within that track that really show up how good the bike is in certain cases. With the extra engine power and with the improved handling, you've got a 1000cc superbike that, and it's a cliche, horrible cliche, but it does feel like a smaller bike. It feels significantly smaller and more agile than the previous model, and they've done that with some simple stuff. As regards to the frame, they've steepened the steering head angle just a tiny bit, but by the same token, they've really lengthened the wheelbase, so by some kind of magic, they've made it really agile, and yet it's incredibly stable on the brakes. It never gets out of shape. So they seem to have done some minor modifications, but they've made a major difference.
Okay, ready? Deep breath.
Yes.
Electronics. BMW are known for not being too shy when it comes to sprinkling the electronic thing over the bike, so I presume this is more of the same.
Yeah, but it's so much more of the same, Harry. I just don't know where to start, because everything that's big and good about the BMW is electronics. Everything, really. So where do you start? I've no idea.
Okay, so there's new stuff, but let's just talk about what's been carried over from the old bike first, the electronic side.
Okay, well, then, as I mentioned, we've got this dynamic damping system, which has been borrowed from the HP4. It has been worked upon. It's continuously responding and adjusting the suspension as you're going around the track. It is massively, massively complicated. But fortunately, BMW had an ex-racer there from the US, and he was able to give me a little bit more of an insight into exactly what's going on. Anything else that's going to help the guy looking for that last tenth or two that springs to mind?
Absolutely, again, the adjustable traction control. How the traction control, basically, there's 4 calculations going into the DDC, actually. So the dynamic dampening control, which we didn't spend much time on. This is the only motorcycle in the world that has dynamic suspension, not predetermined electronic settings. Every 10 milliseconds it dampens itself, and it's based off of 4 calculations. It takes a lean angle from the gyro under the seat, shock travel from the linear sensor on the side of the rear shock, throttle percentage, and brake percentage, and it calculates all 4 of those every 10 milliseconds to
And
determine
adjusts.
what the rebound and compression should be.
Wow.
Yeah. It's cheating.
It's cheating. It's complex, isn't it? It's almost too much to take in again, but all you need to know is that it works incredibly, incredibly well.
But obviously they've built in riding modes, so pre-programmed riding modes.
Yeah,
which-
absolutely. This is what they had before, but it's been expanded now. So you had your rain, sport, and then race. And as you go through those 3 modes, I mean, we rode it in rain on the track, and as soon as you get any little bit of lean angle, it will not let you have full throttle. It's not even a matter of retarding and taking care of the traction that you've exceeded. It just won't let you go there in the first place. And as you go up through road and sport and the different modes, basically the parameters are moving further and further away. So it'll let you have more throttle at more lean angle. The traction control system, which is just mind-blowingly superb. That's preset in all these different modes, but once you move up to the slick mode, and then after slick mode, where basically all the parameters are set as far away as possible, then you can really start to feel the traction control start to work. The user mode is quite clever because it then allows you to pick and choose the best bits of the other mode. So if you really want the rain power, road power with the rain degree of intervention to keep you safe, with a different throttle response from a different mode, you can mix and match all those. And when you're in that mode, you can then manually adjust the traction control so that maybe you've got it set on one certain set of parameters, but you feel like it's being too interventionist and is stopping you having fun. And even on the move, you can then just sort of scroll down and make sure that that traction control moves away. I mean, it's amazing. On the move, you can adjust how much slip you get. You've got to have some pretty dexterous thumbs and a very big brain, neither of which I have, to be able to do that. But the
It
options
sounds like you spend more time at the beginning of your ride setting the bike up to go on the ride than you do on the ride.
Well, that's almost true, but imagine, you know, it is your bike. Once you set it up and you work out what you really like, then you really have personalised the bike to suit you, really.
So, can we finish with electronics
You
now?
can't even get close to finishing with... This is barely the beginning, mate. There is so many electronics. And this, I thought, was going to be a complete gimmick. Now, you may remember that BMW has Gear Shift Assist Pro. Now, it's already on the bike, so that's basically a glorified quick shifter, a very good one. So you're nailing the throttle, and like a racer, when you want to change up, you don't have to back off to hit the clutch or anything. You just tap on the gear lever, and bah, 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 you go up through the gears. Perfect. Now, that system lets you do the same thing on the way down the box, which seemed a bit like a gimmick. But I have to tell you, having ridden with it for a day, I cannot stress what a massive improvement it makes to your riding. As Nate, the instructor, said, what you don't realise is that when you come to a heavy braking area, you're popping the clutch, you're blipping the throttle as well as hard on the brakes and then tapping down the gears. It's actually quite a lot to be doing at once. Now, because you've been doing it all the time, you don't realise, but this system now, so you mash the brakes, you turn the throttle off, and you just tap down on the lever, and it blips and slots the next gear in as smooth as butter. So imagine you're stressed out, you come into a heavy braking area, all you do, hit the brakes, tap the gear lever, no trying to match the engine revs, no blipping the throttle while you're still hard on the brakes. And that frees up a little bit of grey matter that was previously occupied, and now you can concentrate on the track. I really did think it was going to be a gimmick, and I really can't say enough about it now. Absolutely fantastic.
So basically, this is a bike that doesn't actually need a rider.
Almost. I'll tell you what it doesn't need. It doesn't need a clutch. When we were at the track, you use the clutch to engage first gear and then head out of pit lane, and then 20 minutes on the track at a time and never use the clutch. And you only use the clutch when you come back in again to stick it into neutral. It still needs a rider, but I know where you're going. Everything is becoming automated. Everything is becoming about electronics.
Well, I need a break after that, so please join us after the break.